Welcome to the Marketing Innovators Podcast. Today we have Amy Grendus, who is the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Elantis Solutions. She has over 10 years of experience working in sales and marketing roles. Amy has been a key part of Elantis' growth over the past 4 years, increasing staff headcount by more than 4 times and increasing annual revenues from 1 million to over 6 million. So Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
That's wonderful. So interesting journey over there. Looking forward to learn more about how you impacted the growth. But let's get started with telling us a little bit more about your backstory and how you ended up at Elantis.
Sure, yeah. So I think if I think back to my younger self, I never was necessarily dreaming of becoming a marketer, but it all kind of happened by serendipity. Early in my career, I got involved in some sales and business development roles, and that kind of sparked my interest there. But I knew that I wasn't really interested in becoming, an account manager or doing, sales directly and facing with customers. So marketing seemed like something I might be interested in, and I got to dabble a little bit earlier in my career. And then through some connections, I got an opportunity to work with an IT company doing proposal development for competitive bidding. And that's quite a specialized role, but it played into a lot of the things that I love doing, the English language and the writing side of things, as well as some of the strategy around sales. And I learned a ton in that role, and as well got to, touch on certain parts of the marketing side of things, like developing case studies and sharing those customer stories and building the marketing collateral there. But the proposal world is very deadline driven, and it's quite a niche skill. So I was interested in getting into a new role where I could touch more aspects of the business and maybe have a broader impact. So I was kind of looking for a new challenge, and that's when I found Elantis. I actually knew the CEO of Elantis, the founder, personally, and he had kind of been a mentor to me in different ways. And I was able to come on board because Elantis was really somewhere that I wanted to join because the values resonated with me. It's a very people-focused company. We care about building positive careers for people and developing those skills and helping people progress. We also really care about creating great customer solutions and really providing true value. So it's a very relationship-driven and a long-term vision type of company. So to kind of put it together, I can tell you now a bit about what Elantis does. We're an IT consulting company, and we specialize in enterprise content management, business process automation, and business intelligence. So we do a lot of work in the Microsoft stack. What that kind of looks like for people who aren't as familiar is things like SharePoint, doing intranet design and development, doing low-code and no-code automation of business processes, and then, of course, taking all that data that we've gathered through those other, components and doing the analytics on them through the Power BI suite. So as you mentioned in the outset, since I've joined Elantis, we've had a ton of growth. I think we've been really well positioned to take advantage of some of the needs in the market, and we've been able to mature. Elantis was maybe, I wouldn't call it a startup when I joined because they had, been around for a few more years, but was quite a new company. So since the time that I've joined, we've really matured some of our offerings. We're working with, now some Fortune 500 companies as clients, and, been developing and maturing our services to bigger and more complex projects. So it's really exciting.
That is amazing. So who is your target audience? You mentioned Fortune 500 companies, but who would be the ideal target audience that you're, basically working towards?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we don't necessarily specialize in any one vertical or industry. At the moment, just kind of, capitalizing on where the market is going, we've seen a huge shift in companies moving towards the cloud. So especially as the pandemic has shifted us towards remote work, there's been a big need for, greater availability for those tools for people who are at home. So we've seen a lot of municipalities and public sector who are moving towards the cloud, where they might have been concerned about security and privacy issues in the past. We've been working with a lot of big customers in the financial sector, in the medical field, some energy and oil and gas. So lots all over the map, but that's also part of the variety that makes it an exciting place to be.
Interesting. So what kind of marketing efforts have worked for Elantis over the past little while?
So one of the things about working in IT consulting is it's very project based. So, and then that makes it hard to be predictable in terms of how much work you have at one time. We might have a whole glut of projects come in one month and then have it slow down at another time. So that's been one of the challenges is, being able to resource appropriately. As a company that is focused on long-term relationships, we don't want to be somebody that just lays people off or lets them go as we slow down and speed up. So we're trying to focus on, stabilizing that workload. So one of the things that I've worked with the team here to develop is a sort of subscription model for our customers for projects. And although, a subscription model isn't necessarily something new, we see that with, music subscriptions and all kinds of other subscriptions, it is something that's somewhat unique to the IT industry. So the way the model works is that a customer could subscribe to a certain number of hours. They can choose how many that is each month. And then based on that, we fulfill those hours and complete projects accordingly. So that's been a huge boost to us. It's good for our customers and it's good for us. Of course, it creates that stickiness with our clients. It gives us that predictability in terms of resourcing and in terms of workload. But for our customers as well, it provides those same assurances because they know exactly how much they're going to have to pay each month. They don't necessarily have to go through complicated procurement processes. Some of our bigger customers, that can be quite cumbersome for them to have to approve project after project. So they can get, one approval, they can continue working with us. And then as a consulting company, we can get to know them, understand their environment, their needs, and really develop that partnership so that ongoing we can identify areas that we can provide value to them and continue building on those projects and enhancing the services we give to them long term. So it's kind of a win-win. And that's been one of the key offerings that we've been rolling out here, and we've had a lot of success with it.
Interesting. It actually simplifies a lot of things, I'm assuming, and also when it comes to making sure that the understanding is clear. From a customer's perspective, their budgeting purposes, it's very streamlined. And I can imagine that, obviously with the IT industry, there's shifts, and you have to allocate resources to certain aspects. So shifting those resources and getting approvals of that, all those barriers would be eliminated through this model, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the key things. And the other thing is, customers often think about insourcing their IT needs, but it can be a challenge for them to have one or two people, or even a team, depending on the size of their company, but that specializes in all different components of IT, whether it be specific to, the services we provide for, so SharePoint or Power BI or some of the automation tools like the Microsoft Power Platform. One person doesn't necessarily specialize in all of those different components, whereas we can then provide them at this predictable cost the opportunity to work with different specialized resources and find the right person to meet their needs for that month or that project or whatever the duration need be. And then as that project ramps down, then a different resource might come and work on a different type of project for them.
So is this something that has been offered just recently, or has this been in inception since the beginning of the company?
No, it's actually been quite a new offering. We've rolled this out in the past year or so, and we've had a big uptick in it, absolutely.
Interesting. So from a marketing perspective, what kind of, what kind of marketing has really worked for you in terms of promoting this service?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think because of the nature of our business, it's not necessarily a service where someone can just click add to cart. It's quite a customized service. So we do a lot of account-based marketing. So really, it's been around educating our customers in terms of how they could use this service, how the value it would provide to them. So we've worked together to put together some presentations and some collateral in terms of that, but really it's been on quite a one-to-one basis in terms of working with our customers and arming our sales team with those stories of the successes and the advantages of this model.
Well, account-based marketing is very intensive. It's very time-consuming. You're targeting very specific accounts, and you're really understanding what their needs are. and it's a very involved process. Are you finding that are you able to scale that approach, or are you trying some other tactics to hopefully increase the market share?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've been working on here, actually. When I came to Elantis, there was one salesperson, and it was a very relationship-based, whoever was in that person's network, that was who we were working with, which is great to start out. But since then, we've grown our sales team, so we've had to be able to scale some of this, as you mentioned. So we've been working on a bit of outbound marketing campaigns. We've been growing our social media presence, and definitely just, a big part of it is choosing those right targets and then equipping the sales team with the right information so that they can really get the messaging on point when they interact with those targets.
Do you find that there are certain gaps when it comes to marketing that you still have to fulfill or reach, and you're heading towards that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think marketing is always something, it changes so quickly, especially with technology, that there's always new ways to reach customers. And there's definitely lots of areas that I want to expand in, and it's really been a matter of capacity in terms of being able to do so. One of the areas that we have used to be able to help address that is leveraging our partner network. So we work closely with a few software manufacturers such as Nintex and LiveTiles and Microsoft, as I mentioned. So because we have some limited capacity, we've leveraged some of their content and been able to piggyback on one another for social media promotion and work together on that lead generation. And that's been one of the areas where we've been able to increase our capacity. But longer term, I think we're still in some ways finding our voice on social media, and that's an area I'd like to expand in. And I think also, some of the inbound campaigning, we've recently got in a freelance writer to be able to assist us with some of the blog posts and stuff, but I think that's definitely an area we can leverage more strongly in the future.
I see. Do you find that certain marketing efforts are working better than others? And if so, which ones?
Yeah, actually, although it seems maybe a bit antiquated, but I think, we actually pre-pandemic had a lot of success at trade shows and conferences. Some of our biggest customers now are people that we've met at those conferences or trade shows. And in fact, I just had it maybe a week or two ago that a lead called me personally because they had my card from a trade show that I had attended pre-pandemic, so it must be almost 2 years ago now, and said, "Hey, do you remember me? We're interested now." So I think you never know where you might see success. The other thing that we have been actually quite successful with is email campaigns. And I think in terms of that, where we've seen success is just really keeping the message super simple and focusing it not on the sales side, but really on what value can you provide for the customer.
That's true. So, it's interesting. Earlier you mentioned that, account-based marketing is a direction that you really have been trying to execute properly. And I think a key part about that is to really evaluate your customer journey and understand when it is that they're trying to make a decision, how they're actually making their decisions. Are there any platforms or methods that you use to track that data?
In terms of, we have a CRM system that we certainly track that through, and I think a lot of it might be a bit, I feel a bit old school, but we have daily sales meetings with the team every day, and we share those stories around, where is the customer in this journey, what's been working for someone else, what suggestions, and we really work collaboratively on all those leads. You mentioned about the customer journey. I think one of the key things is the acquisition cost is high, because we do very custom solutions and doing that account-based marketing and really targeting people over time. So continuing that customer journey on through the sales cycle, because some of our customers for their first projects might be quite small. Just they want to test the waters. They want to see what their experience is like working with us. So it's been really key for us to make sure that first project is a success, to make sure that they know all of the breadth of the services that we provide, and being able to expand that footprint and keep customers coming back.
Yeah, that's customer acquisition cost is always a challenge, and then obviously retaining the customer to a point where you start seeing a return on investment is critical for any business's success, so you can see profitability. There are definitely some challenges. I see that when it comes to making sure that you're trying to nurture the prospect to a point where they're ready to do business with you. Have you thought of ways on how to reduce that customer acquisition cost, or is there a strategy that you're thinking of implementing that would help do that, perhaps?
Definitely, yeah. One of the other things that we've been working on, and it's always a work in progress, but we've been working a lot to standardize some of our offerings. So being able to, have a package for, if you want an intranet, here is exactly what that looks like, as opposed to, really, building from scratch every time. So we've been working on getting, a more programmatic approach to onboarding the customer in terms of their first engagement, making that a discovery, so we can work just a very small, low commitment option to test the waters, build that relationship, understand their needs and their environment, and then grow that. In terms of how a sales might progress at Elantis, just to give you a bit of insight, we would often have to have one of our architects to estimate the cost of the project, and because that's customized, they'll have to meet with the customer maybe multiple times to get those details, to be able to price it accurately, and then work through that estimation process along with sales. So the key there is really just to minimize the amount of time and inputs through that standardization, and we've been able to do that with a few offerings right now, and we're working on doing that more so over time as well.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you foresee in the future for growing Elantis?
I think there's a few different things that come to mind. One of the things is, in and of itself, by nature, technology is changing so fast. So being in the technology field, what the market demands at one point, can shift so quickly. We've seen this, especially with the pandemic as well, that prior to that, we did some ECM migrations and document management stuff, but it wasn't the hugest component of our business. But as the pandemic shifted the way we work, this became a big part of our growth. Moving forward, of course, as everyone transitions to the cloud, that piece of our business is going to dwindle, of course, because where else are you going to go? You're already in the cloud. So being able to foresee what might be the next big thing and the next shift is really important to us to be able to maintain our longevity. We've already been, working on some of these things. We're expanding into the records management space, which is a huge kind of pain point and challenge especially for public sector clients who we work with a lot. So I think it's kind of a natural extension to what we already do. But definitely, working closely with our partners in terms of, the technology, and just staying really on top of what is going to be the next big trend, and then being able to capitalize on that as it comes out.
I mean, the pandemic has forced many businesses to pivot in the past year or so. And in a way, it seems that you've actually facilitated or helped businesses pivot and digitize some of the services that they are looking to have. Can you maybe shed some light on how the pandemic has helped Elantis, and also how Elantis has helped clients during the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I do want to comment that I do, of course, the pandemic's been a terrible thing for many people, and I don't want to sound like we're exploiting the suffering of others, because it's not that. But of course, we need to take advantage of what's happening in the market, and also be able to help our customers through that. So, as I mentioned, pre-pandemic, we did have a lot of strategy around trade shows and in-person events. We've had to kind of accommodate that and find different ways to reach out to people. That has led to some of our shift to outbound marketing and email campaigns, and as well looking more at our social media and our other digital strategies. In terms of helping customers, we did, I'll be honest, we saw a bit of a drop as the pandemic first hit. People were scared about what's going to happen. How do I budget as an organization? What do I do? So we had projects cancel, and, some times of uncertainty in terms of, how will this impact us? But we saw a quick rebound as organizations moved to remote work. I can give you a couple examples of situations where we've assisted, if you like.
Sure.
One of the obvious things is everyone is moving to Teams, Microsoft Teams, and everybody has adopted it so quickly by necessity. But this has created a problem wherein people don't know, are documents stored in Teams? Are they stored locally? Are they somewhere else? So we can assist companies in governance and creating policies so that people can still be productive and find the information they need. That's just one simple example. But just around the time of the pandemic, we were working with a customer who is a large benefits insurance company for healthcare benefits. And of course, because of the sensitivity of their data, they couldn't take the hard copies of documents home to people who are working remote. And although it somewhat is shocking to me, 1/3 of their claims were submitted in hard copy. So what we were able to do was build a solution that integrated scanning capability for those documents, and then developed an automated process that would allow those people who are processing the claims to, work through the process, to escalate them, assign them as needed, and be able to do all of that process securely and also remote. And we were able to provide that for them so that there was no interruption to their customer service or to slow down their business. So definitely, being able to capitalize on all those digital tools and to create solutions that don't require paper, that's a big part of what we do.
So, so when it comes to marketing, or let's say, you were talking about customer acquisition earlier, right? Mm-hmm. So this particular case study that you just referred to, what was the customer journey like? I mean, how did that customer end up doing business with Elantis? What were certain decision-making criteria that actually helped them to make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I will say this was a customer that we met at a conference, so that was part of where we found them and got to know them. I think, it was really around continuing to share the value that we've provided to other customers has been a big part of, helping to build that trust to make them ready to make the decision. So, we do a lot of references and testimonials in terms of our content, and I think that's been key for sure to build trust. And the other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, leveraging our partner network as well. So we actually worked with a software company in partnership to develop, grow that lead. So I guess it's sort of a two-pronged attack there, having more contacts and being able to just build those relationships over time.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, definitely, I think there's a lot of different decision-making factors that go into your customer that you're targeting. So I was trying to understand, okay, I'm sure there's an educational process that they go through when they're dealing with the team. And and there's challenges there when it comes to providing that level of education, because it needs to be customized for majority of your customers. Each customer has their own unique needs and maybe their own circumstances. So it seems that that earlier solution that you offered, which was, I think, more of like a package solution, a subscription-based package solution that kind of clarifies some of the offerings that you offer as a service, would be really a great way to facilitate more sales for Elantis. So I think that's...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So are you finding that, in the near future, you're planning to propose some additional solutions like what you're offering right now, or you're going back to some of the traditional means once the pandemic is over?
Yeah, in terms of marketing initiatives, I know as things are opening up, we are hoping to get back to some in-person events. As I mentioned, we have had a lot of success there. And I think definitely growing some of our digital strategy. I'm looking forward to, in the coming year, working on a lot of our social media strategy and our inbound content to be able to grow some of that education that you mentioned. I think it's really key because of the nature of the marketing we do, that it's account-based, to build that trust. So we have a focus also on building more case studies and just having those readily available as needed to help boost the confidence in working with Elantis as well.
That's wonderful. So, Amy, going back, let's say 5 or 10 years, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, I think there's lots of things I'd like to tell younger Amy, but I think, one of the things that I would say both, from a personal point of view and from a professional or company point of view would be like, don't hold yourself back, don't limit yourself. Just really, I think I wish that when I was younger I had more confidence to just dive in and try things, and that's something I'm trying to learn and focus on personally over time. But I think that attitude also transfers to marketing. It's part of the fun part of marketing for sure, is to be able to try different things, test them out, see how it goes, and then if it's not a success, then you can always pivot or continually incrementally improve your approach over time. So I think just trust your gut and go for it. That's my advice.
Awesome. So based on your experience and the challenges that you've overcome, if there was one big key takeaway that you would like to give to your audience, what would that be?
I think, would be key is to know your own strengths and those of the team, and then be able to capitalize on those. So, for example, at Elantis, some of the areas that we've been able to grow in is through responding to proposals to competitive RFPs, and that's based on my background having specialized in that. So just using that strength, and likewise we've had success in trade shows because we have some extremely talented presenters and technical folks who've been able to really showcase Elantis amazingly and show off our resources and our smart people. So I think just really look at yourself and look around at your team and look for the strengths of those people and just take advantage of them.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us today. If there's somebody out there who wants to reach you, what is the best way to contact you?
Yeah, so I think probably the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn at Amy Grendus. If you're interested in knowing more about Elantis, you can find us on the web at www.elantis.com, and on our social platforms, we are Elantis Inc. If you ever want to shoot me a question or anything, you can also email me if you send a note to info@elantis.com. I will find it and I'll get back to you.
Great. We'll definitely include the links here in our follow-up article for the podcast. And I wish you the best of success there, Amy, and looking forward to the growth there at Elantis. And please do stay in touch.
Thank you. Likewise.